Here is something most gardeners never consider. The cure for a dying plant is very likely already sitting in your kitchen trash can right now. You walk out one morning, coffee in hand, and the tomato plant you have been tending since early spring looks completely different from the week before. The leaves have gone pale and papery. The stems are bending low. The flowers that opened with such promise just days ago have already dried up and fallen, without setting a single fruit. Most of us reach for the shovel at that point, and tell ourselves there was nothing left to do. Welcome back to Roots and Garden Secrets. What I am about to share is something I wish someone had told me years ago, before I pulled out more plants than I care to count. Here is what soil researchers have found. In nearly every case, that plant is not dying, it is starving. Running low on one or two specific nutrients the soil can no longer deliver. And every one of those nutrients can be restored in as little as 48 hours, using things already in your kitchen. Today I am walking you through 6 zero-cost liquid fertilizers, the most common mistake gardeners make with each one, and a sixth method almost no one talks about that is the only thing that truly builds your garden for the long run. The fertilizer industry has no interest in you knowing any of this. There is simply no way to put a logo on a banana peel. If this is your first time here, hit subscribe and give this video a like. Now let us get into it. Let me start with something most people throw away without a second thought: onion skins. Those dry, papery brown layers you peel off and toss straight into the trash before the onion ever hits the cutting board. Here is a question worth stopping on. Which part of the onion actually holds more potassium? The white bulb that goes into your soup, or those crinkled brown skins headed for the garbage? The answer surprises most gardeners. It is the skin, every time. Those outer layers carry potassium in organic forms that dissolve directly into water and move straight into plant tissue without any processing delay. Commercial fertilizers deliver potassium as potassium chloride, and while that works short-term, the chloride accumulates over time and quietly damages the microbial life that keeps your garden healthy season after season. The potassium in onion skins carries none of that baggage. But potassium is only part of the story. Onion skins also contain a compound called quercetin. It shields leaves from harsh summer sun, slows fungal infection, and activates the plant's own natural defenses. It also does something fertilizer companies spend millions trying to replicate synthetically. It naturally slows the breakdown of nitrogen already in your soil, keeping it available to your plants longer instead of escaping into the air. Here is a number that puts this in perspective. The average American household uses around 20 pounds of onions every year. The skins from that amount alone contain enough potassium to feed a 200-square-foot vegetable garden through an entire summer. That is going straight into your trash bag right now. Making the elixir takes almost no effort. Grab a loose handful of dry onion skins, drop them into a quart jar, fill it with cool tap water, and leave it on your counter for 24 to 48 hours. By the second day, the water will have turned a deep amber color. That color is your signal. Pour it around the base of any struggling plant, and you will see a difference within days. One tip most gardening guides leave out: apply this before 9 in the morning and mist a light amount directly onto the leaves as well. At that hour, the pores on the leaf surface are open and absorbing, and the quercetin enters through the leaf significantly faster than through the roots alone. The most common mistake is burying the skins directly in the soil and waiting for them to break down. That works eventually, but eventually means weeks. A plant in trouble does not have weeks. Water is the shortcut. Now, while the onion peel elixir feeds your plant directly, the second method works on something deeper. It feeds the living community underneath your soil, and once you understand what that community does, you will never look at the water you rinse your rice with the same way again. Most evenings in American kitchens, that cloudy, starchy water goes straight down the drain. I did it for years myself. What I did not know is that water, after just a few days of fermentation, becomes one of the most powerful soil treatments you can give a struggling garden. In the 1980s, an agricultural researcher named Dr. William Hayes at the University of Hawaii introduced the concept of effective microorganisms to modern science. His work showed that specific beneficial microbes, when introduced to depleted soil, could bring it back to productive life within weeks. The formulas built on his research are now used on farms in more than 150 countries, and the core microbes at the heart of those formulas are the same ones that grow naturally and freely in fermented rice water sitting on your counter. What makes fermented rice water genuinely powerful is what those microbes do once they reach your soil. The beneficial bacteria actively suppress Fusarium and Pythium, the two root rot fungi responsible for more dead vegetable plants in American backyards than almost anything else. If you garden in Florida, Georgia, or Texas, you already know how fast those two can take down an otherwise healthy plant. There is also the matter of vitamin B1. Healthy plant roots naturally produce B1 to feed the microbial ecosystem around them. When a plant is under stress, it loses the ability to keep that production going. Adding fermented rice water is like sending an emergency supply line directly to the root zone at exactly the moment the plant needs it most. The mistake nearly everyone makes is using fresh rice water right after rinsing. Fresh works mildly at best. The version that actually transforms your soil is 3 to 5 days old, with a faint sour smell similar to sourdough starter. That smell is not spoilage. That smell is exactly what you are looking for. Dilute it at 1 part rice water to 10 parts plain water before applying. Diluted correctly, it is gentle enough to use every single week throughout your growing season. 2 methods down, both of them free, both starting to work within days, and we are just getting started. Open any refrigerator in America right now, and you will find the same thing in the crisper drawer. A tomato that went soft before anyone got around to using it. A head of lettuce that wilted 3 days ago. A cucumber pushed to the back of the shelf with a bruise spreading across one end. Most households bag all of that up and send it to the landfill twice a week without a second thought. I want to tell you what that actually costs your garden. A 19th century German chemist named Dr. Heinrich Weber, one of the founding minds of modern agriculture, proved something that fundamentally changed how serious farmers think about soil. He showed that a plant's growth is never determined by the nutrients it has plenty of. It is always determined by the one nutrient it has the least of. He illustrated this with the image of a wooden barrel built from staves of different heights. The water inside only rises as high as the shortest stave. It does not matter how tall the rest are. One short stave caps the whole barrel. Your garden works the exact same way. Soil surveys conducted on more than 10,000 backyard garden samples across the northeastern United States found that more than 73% of those samples were critically low in organic nitrogen. Not slightly low, critically low. And the reason is straightforward. Modern American households bag their organic kitchen waste in plastic and send it to a landfill instead of returning it to the soil the way every generation before us did without thinking twice. Here is the good news. Every overripe tomato, every wilted pepper, every soft cucumber in that drawer is nitrogen waiting to be unlocked. The process is simple. Pack your vegetable scraps into a 5-gallon bucket, cover them with water, weigh them down with a plate so they stay submerged, and let the mixture ferment for about 2 weeks. One detail that old-time Appalachian farmers passed down through generations makes a real difference here. Add a small handful of garden soil to the bucket at the very start. That soil carries the native bacteria already adapted to your specific yard, and it accelerates the whole process by 30 to 40%. When the liquid is ready, it will be dark, cloudy, and carry a strong, earthy smell. That smell means it is working. Dilute it at 1 part liquid to 30 parts clean water before it ever touches your garden. Pour it slowly around the base of the plant, directly onto the soil. Within 4 to 6 days, tired, pale leaves begin to deepen. New shoots push out from places where nothing was forming before. The mistake that burns more gardens every summer than almost anything else is applying this liquid undiluted or spraying it on the leaves. At full strength, it is powerful enough to scorch foliage on contact and damage tender root hairs beyond recovery. Always dilute. Always apply to the soil, never on the leaves. That takes care of the nitrogen problem. But a plant that has been struggling for a while is usually not missing just one thing. It is missing several nutrients at once, in different amounts, all at the same time. That is exactly the problem the next method was built to solve. Think of this one as a full recipe, rather than a single ingredient. It comes together from 5 things most households discard before breakfast every single morning, and each one plays a specific role that the others cannot cover. Banana peels bring potassium, the mineral that drives flowering, fruiting, and the plant's ability to move water through its own tissue. A tomato plant running low on potassium will give you small, watery fruits, with skins that split open right as they ripen. Eggshells handle calcium, but only if you grind them fine, and I mean fine, closer to powder than to chips. Here is why that detail matters so much. Coarsely broken shells sitting in water release somewhere between 10 and 15% of their available calcium. Shells ground to a near powder release 80 to 90%. That calcium in water converts to a form that can actually travel through the plant's own vascular system, the same compound found in professional-grade calcium sprays that sell for well over $100 a bottle. Used coffee grounds add organic matter and slow-release nitrogen. I want to clear up something here, because this myth has circulated in gardening communities for decades. Fresh, unbrewed coffee grounds are acidic. Used grounds, the kind that come out of your coffee maker or French press every morning, test at nearly neutral on the pH scale, right around 6.5 to 6.8. They will not acidify your soil. What they will do is feed your earthworms, improve drainage, and release nitrogen slowly over several weeks. Epsom salt contributes magnesium, which sits at the center of every chlorophyll molecule in every green leaf, and sulfur, which the plant needs to build the proteins that give your tomatoes their flavor and aroma. A tomato grown in sulfur-deficient soil tends to produce fruit that is firm but flat, pale in color, and missing that deep, rich taste you are growing it for in the first place. One word of caution here. Yellowing leaves have several possible causes, and Epsom salt only addresses one of them. Use it when you have good reason to believe magnesium is the issue, not as a general fix for every plant that looks tired. The 5th ingredient is blackstrap molasses, not regular molasses but the dark, almost bitter kind, from the final stage of sugarcane processing. Blackstrap carries iron, manganese, copper, and selenium, trace minerals that none of the other ingredients provide. More importantly, the carbon in molasses acts as fuel for the free-living nitrogen-fixing bacteria already present in your soil, the kind that pull nitrogen directly from the surrounding air and convert it into a form your plants can use. All 5 ingredients go into about 1 gallon of warm water and steep together for 3 to 5 days in a covered bucket. The single biggest mistake people make with this recipe is leaving the molasses out. Without it, the other ingredients release their nutrients slowly over weeks. With it, the whole brew becomes active and ready within 3 days. That 1 tablespoon is the difference between a slow drip and an immediate rescue. Before 1913, synthetic fertilizer did not exist anywhere on Earth. Every farm from the rolling fields of Iowa to the mountain hollows of Appalachia ran on the same 2 inputs farmers had relied on for thousands of years. Aged manure and compost, that was it. And those farms fed generations of families with soil that stayed alive and productive decade after decade. Then Fritz Haber and Karl Bosch developed a process that pulled nitrogen directly out of the air and turned it into ammonia. That invention fed hundreds of millions of people, and for that, it deserves genuine credit. But it also quietly taught an entire generation of farmers to feed the plant while starving the soil. The results are visible today. Dead zones spreading across the Gulf of Mexico, collapsed soil structure across the Great Plains, a slow, grinding loss of the microbial life that once made American farmland some of the most fertile on Earth. For a home gardener, the old method still works, and for rescuing a struggling backyard plant, it still outperforms anything that comes in a synthetic bag. In the Pennsylvania Dutch country communities that have farmed the same land for over 200 years, Mennonite farmers call this method the giant tea bag, and they have long called rabbit manure by another name entirely, rabbit gold. That reputation is earned. Here is how to choose based on what your garden needs right now. Aged chicken manure carries a nutrient profile close to a commercial all-purpose fertilizer, but it also contains natural plant hormones called cytokinins that stimulate new cell division at the growing tips of your plants. A tired tomato plant, treated with chicken manure tea, does not just get fed. It gets triggered to push out new growth. Cow manure works more slowly, and that is exactly its strength. It is gentler on soil biology and exceptional for building the long-term humus layer that keeps your garden productive year after year rather than just this season. Rabbit manure is in a category of its own. Beneficial bacteria survive the rabbit's digestive process and remain alive in the droppings, making rabbit manure act essentially like a probiotic for your soil. It is also the only common manure gentle enough to use without extended aging, making it the safest option for young seedlings and newly transplanted starts. To make the tea, fill an old cotton pillowcase or mesh laundry bag with a generous shovelful of well-aged manure, at least 6 months to a full year old. Tie it shut and drop it into a 5-gallon bucket of water for 3 to 5 days. The water draws out the soluble nutrients, while the solid material stays safely inside the bag, leaving weed seeds and pathogens behind. When it is ready, dilute it down to the color of weak iced tea, roughly 1 part tea to 10 parts clean water. Apply it in the early morning or the last hour before sunset. At midday, nitrogen evaporates from the soil surface faster than roots can absorb it. In the cool hours, the soil holds what you give it, and the plant drinks through the night at its own pace. The mistake that destroys more gardens with this method than any other is using fresh manure. Fresh droppings carry ammonia levels high enough to burn roots on contact, along with weed seeds and pathogens. A single bucket applied without dilution can scorch an entire row of seedlings within 48 hours. Age the manure first. There are no shortcuts on this step. Now the 6th method. This one is different from everything we have covered. The first 5 methods feed your plants and rescue your garden through this summer. What I am about to share builds your soil in a way that keeps working for years after a single application. Here is the problem most American backyard gardeners never get told. The issue is rarely that your soil lacks nutrients. The issue is that your soil cannot hold the nutrients you give it. Sandy soil loses whatever you apply within a few hours of the next rain. Clay soil compacts so tightly that roots struggle to breathe and nutrients get locked away where plants cannot reach them. You can pour the best fertilizer in the world onto either soil type and watch most of it disappear before your plants ever see it. The solution has been sitting in human history for a very long time. Indigenous peoples across the Americas created something archaeologists now call terra preta, meaning dark earth. Patches of this black soil remain dramatically more fertile than the surrounding land after more than 2,000 years. Modern soil science finally understands why. The secret was biochar, a form of charred organic material that does not break down. It stays in the soil and keeps working indefinitely. A single gram of biochar contains a pore structure with a surface area of up to 300 square meters. Those microscopic pores act like permanent housing for beneficial microbes and a sponge for nutrients, holding them in place through rain and irrigation instead of letting them wash away. Here is how to make it at home. Start with natural lump charcoal from any Walmart or Home Depot, the kind used for grilling with no chemical additives. Break it into coarse pieces with a hammer. Add a loose handful to 1 gallon of water, along with 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses, and let it soak for 48 hours. Strain the liquid through an old cloth and pour it slowly around the base of your plants. The charcoal pieces you strain out go directly into the top few inches of your garden bed, where they will keep functioning as a slow-release nutrient reservoir for years to come. Sandy soil, clay soil, depleted soil. Biochar addresses all 3 at once. It is the only method on this list that does not just treat the symptoms of a struggling garden. It changes the underlying condition of your soil permanently. So let us bring all 6 of these together, because each one does something the others cannot. Onion peel elixir delivers potassium in a form that feeds your plants without harming your soil biology, and the quercetin in it quietly strengthens your plant's own natural defenses from the inside out. Fermented rice water rebuilds the living microbial community in your soil, the invisible workforce that determines how well your plants can use every other nutrient you give them. Vegetable scrap digestate is your fastest source of nitrogen, turning what your refrigerator throws away every week into the most common missing nutrient in American backyard gardens. The kitchen cocktail covers the full range of deficiencies at once: potassium, calcium, nitrogen, magnesium, sulfur, and trace minerals, all from ingredients that were headed for the trash before breakfast. Aged manure tea is the foundation that farmers on this land relied on for centuries before synthetic fertilizer existed, and it still works better than most of what sits on the shelf at the garden center. And charged biochar water is the one method on this list that does not just feed your garden for a season. It rebuilds the soil itself, drawing on knowledge that indigenous people on this continent held for more than 2,000 years. The truth that ties all six together is simple. What your kitchen calls waste every single morning is, in almost every case, exactly what your garden needs to come back to life. A gardener who understands that has access to a supply of fertilizer that will never run out, never raise its price, and never carry a warning label. The next time a tomato plant starts to yellow, or a pepper stops setting fruit, or a zucchini that looked strong last week begins to fade, pause before you reach for the shovel. What you need is very likely already sitting in your trash can right now. If one of these 6 methods is something you are going to try, drop a comment below and tell me which one. And if you know a fellow gardener who has been losing more plants than they have been saving this season, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need. Every kitchen that sends its scraps back into the soil instead of the landfill is one more small piece of something worth holding on to. Happy gardening, and I will see you in the next one.